Previously on the Rod Pedersen Show.
And I tell you this, my breakout moment in broadcasting was in Winnipeg doing the Wednesday lottery with Don Whitman. And my favorite author, you can see there's a lot of books in behind me here. My favorite author is from Steinbach, Manitoba. Her name is Miriam Taves, and she moved up. Great story about Miriam. Her father, Mel, ran a school in Steinbach, but on weekends for pin money, he would sell his eggs up in Winnipeg. He would drop off containers of eggs. So at one point, he was getting ready to marry a woman named Elvira, who would be Miriam Taves, the author's mom. And he wanted to build a house just like one he'd seen in Winnipeg dropping off eggs. So Elvira says, well, what's it like inside? He says, oh, I have no idea. I just drop the eggs on the veranda and I move on. She said, well, you got to look inside to see if it's a house worth building. He says, I can't ask to go inside. I'm an egg deliverer. She said, leave it to me. So they go up to Winnipeg from Steinbach. She knocks on the door and says, do you mind if we have a look around? My husband here, Mel, wants to build a home just like this in Steinbach, and it will be our new wedding gift. And the guy says, come on in. It was Bill Mosienko. Bill Mosienko holds the record for the fastest hat trick in NHL history. He scored 3 goals in 21 seconds. And that just proves he's a good egg. Oh, sorry, there's a pun.
Get ready for the Rod Pedersen Show. Right now.
Realizing I watched a lot of television with the youngsters back in the day.
How about that?
I'll say it again. That cab driver in Bucharrios, Mexico, when he said, Señor, your español es mucho bueno. Why is that? I said, Dora the Explorer. That's why I learned so much Spanish.
I got to brush up on my Spanish, though.
Yes, you do. ¿Cómo estás? Uno más, por favor.
This is the Rod Pedersen Show.
Hola. Welcome, everybody, to the RP Show. I'm going to tell you, I'm having the time of my life. So, too, I think, is the Moose. We're going to have so much fun today. Let's bring him in. I'm in the South Florida studio. Moose is in the Toronto studio. What a series we got going on. Just to take care of business, it's episode 1494 of Canada's favorite daytime sports talk show, where we let 32 U.S. states tune in. And our guest today is coming up in hour 2, Sweet Annie O'Donnell. She's an LA Kings and Anaheim Ducks podcaster, and I did break the news just this morning. Yeah, I think you saw it, Moose, that I'm told Ken Holland will be the next general manager of the Los Angeles Kings. We have a lot of hockey talk to get to, some NBA, Blue Jays, and a whole lot of football. So I'll just say, how are you doing? How was the weekend? And are you ready to get down to business?
Man, I'm having a great start to the week. It was a wonderful weekend, and I'm ready to be back.
Okay, that's all we need to know. Guys, can you hit the quick 6 show horn? Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. And let's go. I can tell my weekend was this. Quick 6 show topics. The big story is the Stanley Cup playoffs. Carter Verhaeghe and Sam Bennett scored. Netminder Sergei Bobrovsky stopped all 22 shots he faced. And the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers defeated the visiting Toronto Maple Leafs 2-0 Sunday to tie their second-round series at 2 games each, heading back to Toronto for Game 4 on Wednesday. My phone was inexplicably silent from Leaf fans all weekend. I don't know why, Darren. They left Toronto up 2-0. They're coming back to Toronto tied 2-2. That doesn't seem like a shock to any of you. And in a second, you're going to see some photos from last night's Game 4 in American Bank Arena, where it was one big party. And I had to enlist my friend Biz in that. We got a lot of fun things going on. So we're happy here in Florida with the state of the Panthers and the hockey team and where this series. How is it where you're at in Hogtown, Moose?
Yeah, I think everything's pretty good, and I think pretty expected, right? We knew this would be a tough series, and what I love coming out of Florida is all the people that were at the games now, and it's starting to become such a it thing to do. You know, going to the hockey games in these warm climates, which is awesome. I'm seeing obviously the Spit and Chicklets guys, and they're all involved in this series. One of the guys I follow, I look at Chris Fowler was there. He lives down in Miami. Big college football, the lead voice for ESPN and college football in the major tennis tournaments. He was in the game. I'm seeing more celebrities going to the games. So that's cool. And the atmosphere is fantastic. So looked like a really awesome weekend.
Well, it was a hell of a lot of fun. Friday night, the Panthers won in overtime 5-4 to cut the series lead by the Leafs to 2-1. And then last night, a 2-0 shutout, a 23-save shutout by Bob. Now, there's a side story to all of this. There's my friend Cesar Lucero. Clark has the photo of him. Okay, I happened to be walking around the concourse, and I saw Big C's sitting there in the handicap section, special needs section, and I'm like, C's, can we get a photo? For those that don't know, Caesar's got a big feud going with our good friend Paul Bissonnette from the NHL on TNT and Spit and Chicklets. So I'm like, hey, Biz, took this photo. I sent it to Biz as the Panthers were winning the game and coming back to tie it. And here's the thing, Darren, you know that I have Paul Bissonnette's phone number, but I don't abuse it. I got it when I was hanging around Phoenix, and he just was starting as a broadcaster, as the Coyotes color guy. This is what I got back from Biz. Clark's got that. What?
How about that?
See what?
Hot damn.
Do you see what I mean about Leaf fan? Now, you can tell by the look in his eye and the quasi-smile on his face, he's not. Caesar loved it. Caesar loved it. And I said, listen, this is what we got to do. Before Game 7, Big C's and Biznasty and a cage. Hell in a cell. What do you think? Because this has got to go 7 this series. What do you think?
I think that's fantastic. That is one of the great storylines to come out of the playoffs, is the feud between those two. I love it. And they're both leaning into it, and it's become this wonderful social media story. I think it's cool. I think it's really cool. I like the way Biz has played into it. And I love the fact that Caesar's just giving it right back to him, and he's not worried about what Paul Bissonnette thinks. I think it's just awesome, man. This is one of those fun stories.
I don't want the series to end, and I obviously don't want the playoffs to end. We'll see where it goes. Game 5 is Wednesday. Series tied 2-2. Carlos in Indianapolis says Game 7 would be good for the betting sites. David, number 1 in Winnipeg, says, oh, no. The Biz.
Oh, no.
You're number 1, Caesar. Oh, my God. I didn't expect a reply from Biz. It was in the middle of the game, but I got it. Now, to more serious matters, Darren, we're all sitting here as a Panthers podcast, Cats and Bolts podcast, Panthers hockey people, saying, is Tkachuk hurt? I don't know, but everybody thinks he's hurt. I went to the game with Brent from Wellington, Florida. He's a season ticket holder. He thinks that Tkachuk is hurt, but they're saying the same thing about Austin Matthews. I'm wondering what you're hearing up there. People just go too far. I saw this thing on Twitter this morning. Some guy goes, if Austin Matthews is playing with a broken neck and Leaf fans don't want him, then he can come to Winnipeg. We'll take him with the Jets. Like, is he hurt? Because I saw the stat. He hasn't scored a second-round goal ever in his career. Is that right? I don't know what it is, but they're up and on Austin Matthews' butt, too. Austin Matthews for the Leafs. Matthew Tkachuk for the Panthers hasn't done a ton. If they are hurt, why are they playing?
Yeah, well, they're playing. If they're hurt, they're playing because it's the playoffs, and because that old saying, because it's the cup, and it matters. They're doing other things too to have an impact on this series. But you're right. You got 2 superstars, one on either side, not really having an impact on the scoreboard in this series, and it's become. It started as a side story to this series, the first few games, but it's become like a major storyline. That neither of these guys are producing. And now you start wondering, what are they dealing with? And, for Matthew Tkachuk, we know he didn't play in the gold medal game at the Four Nations face-off. So is there something that's been re-aggravated or lingering from that? And with Matthews, we're not sure what it is. He's not the same Austin Matthews. So something to follow for sure as this series draws on. But also there's the other side to it is these are the 2 best players in the series. So you think maybe they're a focus defensively from the other team too, to take them away? So there's a little bit of that going into it, scheming against these 2, but also something's just not right.
Austin Matthews has had his shots. He's missed the net a lot, but you haven't seen him on breakaways. You've seen Mitch Marner on multiple breakaways. You've seen Matthew Nyes around the net, but you haven't seen Austin Matthews in a high danger scoring chance, as they say? And is that because he's not allowed to get in there, or how hard has he tried to get in there? And I'm not saying, he's a great captain. We know his whole deal. Listen, we've been around this a long time. The coaches all seem to feel that Austin Matthews at 80% or Matthew Tkachuk at 65% is better than this guy at 100%. Or last year, Leon Draisaitl in the Stanley Cup final didn't score a single goal at all, and we found out that he was hurt. So the coaches know what they're doing, everybody, just so you know. But if those guys are hurt, it's unfortunate because it does affect the series for sure. Now to the other game from last night. Mikko Rantanen had a goal and 2 assists as the Dallas Stars beat the Winnipeg Jets 5-2 to grab a 2-1 series lead. And that affair, Kyle Connor and Nino Niederreiter scored for the Jets. Game 4 goes Tuesday in Dallas. Number 1, Mikko Rantanen, odds-on favorite for the Conn Smythe. I don't think there's any doubt about that, even though we're not even halfway through the Stanley Cup playoffs. But he's become the first player in NHL history to have 5 3-point games in the first 10 games of the playoffs. Now, that's kind of hard to follow, but he's made NHL history. There's been some great stories in these playoffs. I got to think he's the Conn Smythe leader. If not him, who else?
I think he's the runaway right now. Obviously, they have to continue to win, but he's almost doing enough to make me even wonder, man, could a guy win the Conn Smythe trophy that doesn't even make it to the Cup final? Like if they got to the conference final and get knocked out, like that's, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But that's how good his playoffs have been so far. He has just been unbelievable. Every time Dallas needs a little push, it's Mikko Rantanen that's getting it done. And that trade is just paying dividends on a night-to-night basis.
Robin in Prince Albert writes in, he says, "Go, Stars, go!" John says Matthews is definitely hurt. Okay, fair. And that's too bad. Maybe that's affecting the series, which before we go any further, I should probably mention that the poll question today for EMJ Marketing is, are the Leafs done? They went up 2-0. Now it's 2-2. Are the Leafs done? EMJ Marketing will provide the perfect keynote speaker for your event. Peruse their roster at emjmarketing.com and look up Joe there. What are they saying on Twitter? 52% are saying, yes, the Leafs are done. It's got to be exhausting. I've said this how many times. Being in the Leafs nation, they're worse than any other fan base in terms of just up and down like a toilet seat. Man, oh my, they were planning the parade. Now it's over. I voted, yeah, they're done, just for fun. What would you vote?
Yeah, I'd vote no. The series is 2-2, but you're coming off your worst game you've played, and I don't know when. The fan base, yeah, I understand if they're a little deflated, blowing a 2-0 series lead and it being evened up. But you go into Florida against the defending Stanley Cup champions, and you lose a couple of games in the building. The series isn't over, so I'll vote no.
You're going to vote no. I'll say yes. It's over. My neighbor Don can probably hear me right now. He said this morning, he's like, I could see the Panthers winning the next 2. Sure. Clearly anything can happen. But what I will tell you is I am not a believer in momentum in a series. I'm not. Every game is its own individual entity. I've changed my mind, as they say. Do you go along with that or not?
Yeah, I go along with that. I think the momentum is more of a fan base thing, like it's a psyche thing. You're kind of in the dumps or whatever, and that transfers from one game to the next. But no, I don't think so. I think each game is an opportunity to change the direction of the series, for sure.
Cardinal Ryan has joined us from upstate New York. Hey, Ryan, please make yourself at home. Again, breaking news today is broken by the Rod Pedersen Show. Ken Holland will be the next general manager of the Los Angeles Kings. You're welcome. To point 2, there are 2 Stanley Cup playoff games tonight. We can sink our teeth into this, including one in Edmonton where the Oilers will aim to take a 3-1 lead in their round 2 series against Vegas. Stuart Skinner will again start in goal for the Oilers. Elsewhere, Alex Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals will try to avoid falling behind 3-1 in their series when they visit the Carolina Hurricanes for Game 4. I listened to Cam Moon, the outstanding radio voice of the Edmonton Oilers, on NHL radio this morning. He was talking about that game, how he and everybody else thought, they were going to overtime at 3-3 the other night, and nope. The Golden Knights had other ideas. The winning goal went into the Oilers' net off Leon Draisaitl's stick with 0.4 seconds to go. I see Stuart Skinner getting ripped by Oilers fans for not being anywhere around the crease. If you know anything about goaltender play, he came out to challenge the shooter. It was Carlson, right? And Carlson deked around him and threw it on net, and it went off Draisaitl into the goal. There was 3 Oilers in front of the net. Everybody played it well defensively. Sometimes spit happens. And the silver lining in that situation is that the Oilers still lead the series 2-1. They can go up 3-1 tonight. That's my take. I'm largely, well, listen, I got my hands full dealing with Leaf fans on social media. I don't have time to go and see what Oiler fans are saying. So what did you hear coming out of Saturday night's game?
Yeah, I know all the same things. The goaltending, the play of Draisaitl, and he had an off night, sure, but you're not going to put Leon Draisaitl up in the press box for the next game. The Oilers are still in the driver's seat of this series. They have been every game, even this game that they lost. They've been in the driver's seat, pushing the play, dictating for me the way the series has been played. So if I'm an Oiler fan, I'm not worried at all. I don't see the big swings in momentum. I think the Oilers are fine, and they've played at a very high level throughout the first few games of the series.
I thought they were going to lose to the Kings in 5. So they're playing on house money as far as I'm concerned. They had control of this series. It's the same thing. They were down 0-2. Oh, it's over. Then they were up 2-0 on Vegas. Oh, it's over. Just with the anxiety and the crap coming from the fan. Just take it over there. Just get away from me with it. Elliot writes in from Winnipeg. He says, hey, guys, do you have any idea as to why Sportsnet has 6 channels on cable and broadcasts the Leafs and Panthers on Friday going into overtime but can't switch to another feed to the Jets and Stars game? Not impressed. You and Darren Rock. Thank you, Elliot. I have no idea why Sportsnet does their things. We got our hands full over here at Anthem Sports and Game Plus. Right, Jeremy? And the gang? I don't know. Call Sportsnet. Do you want to take a swing of that? Because I don't.
Yes. Let me get, they turned away from an overtime game to put the Leafs and Panthers on. What I'll tell you is if they're broadcasting the games, the overtime was on somewhere. You just didn't find the right channel. It's on somewhere. The guide might not show it, and it might say that the Leafs and Panthers are on or whatever game is on, but every game would be on to the finish somewhere.
Well, he is saying the game went to overtime, the early game. Why can't you switch to the Jets game? That's what they're saying. And I'm like, what has started? Because in Winnipeg, they don't care that the Leafs and the Panthers are going to overtime. He's like, why can't I find it with the start of it? Call Sportsnet. Do we look like cable guy? Because we're not.
TV Guide, baby.
Yeah, we're not TV Guide. Just clarifying that. We are in the warm-up, and we'll be right back. We're live on Game Plus Television, streaming live and podcasting wherever the best podcasts are found.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit.
As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Canada's premier Junior A Hockey League deserves premier coverage, and at IKS Media, we have you covered for all things SJHL. SJHL Weekly on Monday, a live broadcast across our social media platforms where we interview your favorite players and coaches from across the league and preview the upcoming week. And on Thursday, SJHL Insider, where we look ahead to the weekend that will be and cover everything going on across the league. Catch it all on our social media platforms or on sjhl.ca.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Brand new week of the RP Show, but still broadcasting from Studio 23 in beautiful South Florida here on Game Plus Television. By the way, we're brought to you in part by Canadian Blood Services. Give hope to patients in Canada. Register online at blood.ca/get swabbed and spread the word amongst your family and friends. End of May, I'll be heading up to the Great White North for the summer of broadcasting baseball. Let's bring the Moose in. He is in Toronto, home of the Blue Jays. Point 3 of our Quick Six show topics, Moose, is this. The Toronto Blue Jays swept the Seattle Mariners. Addison Barker and George Springer each homered, while Eric Lauer struck out 5 in a 9-1 Blue Jays win Sunday. Toronto's won 4 in a row, including 3 straight against Seattle to improve to 20-20. I'm sure there's some talk about the Blue Jays around there. I don't get the broadcast here. Did they fill the Mariners Stadium with Jays fans, as is the custom?
That's the custom, man. And the games were all late because they're out on the West Coast. I mean, they were in Anaheim, against the Angels first in LA, and then up to Seattle for that series. Yeah, Jays are playing well. And you know, they had played Seattle so tight. It was something along the lines of last so many games had all been one-run games going into this series. And then the Jays kind of blew the doors open offensively. So, yeah, Jays are getting a little bit of buzz right now. A little bit of buzz.
Good to hear. 902-518-3033 is the text line. It's for Progressive Insurance. Switch to Progressive, and you could save a bunch. Might as well throw the NBA in here, too. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of Hamilton scored 25 points, and the Oklahoma City Thunder finally outplayed Denver in crunch time, beating the Nuggets 92-87 on Sunday to tie up that second-round series 2-2. And Pascal Siakam scored 21 points, and Indiana tied an NBA playoff record by taking a 41-point halftime lead before routing top-seeded Cleveland 129-109 for a 3-1 lead in the Eastern Conference semifinals. Listen, we're going to jump back to the Stanley Cup playoffs in a second, and if anybody's interested, the scoop that we broke here with the RP show this morning that Ken Holland will be the next GM of the LA Kings. But I'm wondering if your head is into at all the NFL and CFL training camps that are going on, rookie camps for the NFL, main training camps for the Canadian Football League. Just for the football ballers that are tuned in today, I'm casually following the CFL. Fridays are our big CFL day. But last week, while at a Panthers watch party, I had a guy lean across the table to me and say, what did you think about Quinn Ewers going to the Dolphins? And I'm like, well, I better stay up on this because I'm being asked about it. And I can't ever see me losing my Cowboys allegiances for the Dolphins. But the fact is I do live here. And the Dolphins had their rookie camp this weekend. So Quinn Ewers, I was listening to Florio this morning, and he made a really good point, which we all, I think, know. It doesn't matter if you went really from the second round to the seventh round in the NFL draft. The main thing is that you were drafted. That gives you a ticket to training camp. A lot of guys didn't get drafted. They don't get that ticket. So Quinn Ewers has a chance to come in as a seventh rounder. Pressure is off in a lot of ways compared to all those first-round quarterbacks that went. He's third on the depth chart behind Tua and Zach Wilson, who they signed in free agency. So he's got time. And I said, this is the usual thing, Darren. I said, well, his coach at Texas, Steve Sarkisian's a good friend of mine. And the guy was like, don't ask. He just is. And he was very high on Quinn Ewers. But Quinn couldn't stay healthy this last season with the Longhorns. And two, he knew everybody wanted his backup Arch Manning in there, which I would think sucks. So, they got a guy with a chip on his shoulder and time to develop him. That's my thought on the Dolphins. So without, I gotta follow this stuff. People are asking. How much are you following?
Yeah, and it's a good story. And when you're drafted, not only are you get an invite to camp, but it's almost like, you become part of the family a little bit. When somebody in your family does something wrong, you got a little more rope, right? Well, they're part of the family, so we're going to stick with them. We're going to stick with them. When you're drafted and they put that into you, they often give you second chances, third chances. They have a little more rope too. So the fact that he was drafted gives him a little bit of leeway to be on the practice roster, to be around and to develop, as opposed to an undrafted free agent. If you're not paying dividends right away, you're in and you're out. And that's a little bit of what we saw with Nathan Rourke. Not being drafted doesn't get as much leeway as the guys who were drafted.
It's fun to talk about. By the way, Kevin the Medium has shown up. Good morning, RP peeps. Kevin the Medium says in Calgary, happy Monday. I hope all the moms had a great Mother's Day. Ryan O'Media is checking in from Atlanta, Darren. He says, hello, RP and crew. Ryan lives. Haven't heard from him in far too long. Troy in Toronto writes in and says, Austin Matthews must be hurt. He seems like he's playing safe and is not a shooting threat on the power play. Thoughts? We addressed it, bro. Coffee starts at noon Eastern. You got to be here for it. And we got people writing in going, talk about this league, talk about that league. We do the talking and you do the watching. That's how it works. So if you don't like it, you can click and leave. We'll do the talking. You do the watching. I'm not talking to you, Troy in Toronto. I'm talking to the other people saying, talk about this league, talk about that league. We're going to talk about what we want to talk about. Thanks. 1,494 shows and they still don't get it. I think at some point, Darren, you realize they ain't ever going to get it. So furthermore, you talk about the guys that weren't drafted. Did you see the coverage out of Tampa Bay with Shiloh Sanders? This is what the football guys are talking about, that Shiloh didn't get drafted. They didn't expect that he would. Deion's older son, the DB from Colorado, NCAA. So he gets on the phone, gets an agent. Drew Rosenhaus. This is how the agents work. And Darren knows this. I'm sure most of the video viewers do know this. The agent gets him a tryout with the Buccaneers. Apparently on the weekend, Shiloh Sanders was the best DB in camp. And that's I don't think there's any bias there with who his dad is, Coach Prime. But tell me what you think of this. I don't know how many news conferences you've covered in your time, Darren. I've probably covered 1 million. They said Shiloh Sanders walked into the news conference room and shook the hand of every reporter in the room. I could think of 2 guys that have done that in my entire career. Henry Burris, and I can't think of the second. There might be 2. I'm being generous. Henry's like the only guy that I would know that would do that. And it wasn't fake. They said he walked on the field and immediately took command of all the other players. Shiloh Sanders. I would have loved to have seen that. So, back to that. What coverage did you see, if any? Because I know you had a busy weekend.
Yeah, and I did see a little bit of the coverage, but, it would be something cool to see because it wasn't drafted. There's been some negative press around the draft about his combine or about certain things and that, not sure what his NFL future, if he had an NFL future, to see him, step up as a leader, because he's always been in the shadows, right, of Shedeur Sanders and for sure of Dion. But a good football player too, and getting an opportunity. I'm curious to see what type of an NFL career he carves out for himself. But if that's the real deal, that story, he's off to a good start.
I love the story. I all of a sudden like him even more. Ryan Thomas writes in from the Queen City, and he's on the Progressive Insurance text line. He says, no real Leaf fans were planning any parade or saying the series was over after the first 2 games, Roddy. Ryan, I got the receipts. It's a brand new age, brah. I got the... Do you want the names? The Greek Freak was one. Nick was another. Saying all this, what do you think of Rod? Leafs in 6 now? This was last week. So, Ryan, you weren't. But trust me, there are others, Looney Tunes in the Leaf Nation. I have it. Digital technology now has changed so much. You can't get away with crap that people used. No, I didn't. Yeah, you did. Gary in Winnipeg writes in and says, Sportsnet's overlap coverage of the NHL playoffs is terrible. I switch over to TBS, TNT, or True TV to watch second game coverage. What confuses me is that not even the NHL channel is broadcasting playoff games. This is kind of where I got to tap out. I don't know why. When I want to find a game, I find it. I have zero problems. Do you?
No, I have no issues. But again, I understand why they do the things they do and where they put the games, so it's easier for me to follow. But if it's an issue for fans, then yeah, then there's an issue if people can't find it. But it's there somewhere.
You make a great point on something here, and you're backed up by this. Brian in Hudson's Bay writes in. He says, good morning, guys. Moose, a great weekend. Your Leafs lost 2 games and didn't look real good last night. All the Leaf fans on the 2 Toronto sports networks are starting to get pretty worried. He says, I'm worried for my Jets friends. Just saying. He goes, the guy complaining about the Stars-Jets games doesn't know what he's talking about. Jets Stars was on right from the puck drop, even with the other game in overtime. You said, look around, you'll find it. I don't have a ton of time for the complainers today, nor really any other day. Keep looking, and you will find it. I mean, the guy's watching our show. He's a good guy, clearly a smart guy. But it's like, click one button. I can't find it. Wah. Keep looking. That's kind of what you're saying. I don't have a lot of time for it. And of course, the CFL camps are on as well. Jeff, the Stamps fan, says, I'm right into camp. Watched a little yesterday at Hellard Field. They're back to the new turf at McMahon Stadium today. Saw a report of Curtis Rourke signing a deal with the San Francisco 49ers. I can't believe that it would be $4.3 million a year. No, there's no way. Not for a 7th-round pick. Maybe 4.3 total over the length of the contract. Still a very well-off young lad, but I kind of get a bang out of it because it's like, football, you have the fall. Can you stay out of the spring? You know what I mean? But no, it is not their fault. You know, they got to have these camps. Games tonight, we mentioned Vegas, Edmonton, Stuart Skinner starting again. The Washington-Carolina series, although I've watched more of this series than any of the first-round series involving Carolina, I haven't really enjoyed it, but the Canes are up 2-1. Where does this series rate in your interest level?
Yeah, unfortunately, 3 other series have Canadian teams in it. So this rates number 4. It just doesn't, unfortunately. But it's a really good series in the fact that you got some star power there. Carolina has been the better team through the start of this series. They just have been. Doesn't mean Washington's not going to be able to come back, but the series, I know it doesn't rate, especially north of the border, but a good team's going to come out of that series, and Carolina is clearly in the driver's seat. They've been the better team.
Well, I'll tell you what, there was some talk in American Bank Arena last night. I was coming down the elevator with somebody. Can't remember how or why this came up, but they said, hey, the chances of an Edmonton Stanley, this was before the game. They said the chances of an Edmonton-Toronto Stanley Cup final is real. I'm like, absolutely it is. And I said, somewhere I can dig up a meme where I said that last year was going to be the Cup final last year. And I think I want to bring this up. I was watching Pardon the Interruption late last week, Thursday or Friday, and Mike Wilbon on there. You know that's my favorite U.S. show. Mike Wilbon said to Tony Kornheiser, you can imagine the conversation. He goes, if Edmonton plays Toronto in the Stanley Cup, I want to go. I want to be there. And Tony goes, will you have my permission? And I broke out laughing, right? As if Tony's not the one going to make the call on that. Probably the head honcho at ESPN will make the call, whether Mike will. But it's just Canadians have this very skewed, and I don't know why, opinion that Americans don't care about the Canadian teams. I've been down here long enough to realize they're very envious. Like the real hardcore hockey fans, they think of Narnia. They think of Canada as this Narnia of hockey world, Never Land, where the games are sold out and the ratings beat everything else. And guess what? It is. They're envious of what Canada has in the NHL. They don't look down on it. Do you have that sense that they would? Because FYI, they don't.
Yeah, I don't get a sense that anybody looks down on Canada or down on the game, but I think we're a little bit of like, we wish the game was bigger and that the networks talked about it and that it was bigger in the U.S. or whatever the case may be. But as we see, I mean, I think a lot of Canadians' eyes were really opened up during the Four Nations when we saw just how many mainstream U.S. outlets and, celebrities jumped onto the Four Nations. And now we're seeing it. And, more than ever, I mentioned guys like you mentioned Wilbon and Kornheiser. I mentioned Chris Fowler, other guys that have, proud to put on their social media and be going to the games. And it's a big deal. And not just going to the games as fans, they're following it, right? J.J. Watt, another big hockey fan, Pro Football Hall of Famer and all the rest. So it's growing like crazy and it's becoming a really cool sport to follow.
I don't know what happened prior to the last 4 years. I don't know what it was like. That's how long I've been here. But what I know is what it is now. And way more people are into hockey in the USA than ever before. Great timing for me. And we got some great comments here. 902-518-3033. Moose, I'll let you skedaddle till hour 2. I'll handle this with a sports update and viewer takeover, okay? You cool with that?
You got it. Appreciate it.
All right. We'll be right back here. We are on the Game Plus television network, Canada-wide, as well as 32 U.S. states where they like to do that hockey. Streaming live and podcasts wherever the best podcasts are found.
This experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Hi, my name is Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
From cash spiels to grand slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders, plus behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Hour one brought to you by Landmark Cinemas. In Landmark Cinemas now, fight or flight. A mercenary takes on the job of tracking down a target on a plane, but must protect her when they're surrounded by people trying to kill both of them. Starring Josh Hartnett, Katie Sackhoff, and Julianne Kostov. Fight or flight in Landmark Cinemas now. The sports update can hold for just a second. 902-518-3033 is the text line to reach me here in Studio 23 on the Progressive Insurance text line. Switch to Progressive and you could save a bunch. Or the streaming chat. Greg in Calgary writes in and says, here in Calgary, during the first game, the bottom ticker tells you where to go to watch the late game pregame show. So the nice gentleman in Winnipeg was ticked that on his television, the start of the Jets-Stars game Friday night was preempted because of the overtime here between the Panthers and Leafs. Everybody's coming to his rescue and helping him and saying, you can find out. Just try. Gary in Winnipeg writes in and says, you are correct, Rod. Well, that's always nice to hear. I don't hear that very often. Curtis Rourke's 4-year deal is $4.33 million. It extends through the 2030 NFL season. So I just glanced at it, saw the numbers. I'm like, this has got to be over the length of the contract. So Curtis Rourke has signed, and it should be noted, with the San Francisco 49ers of the NFL. And so it should be noted that he was drafted by the Saskatchewan Roughriders in the 3rd round of the CFL draft, but I don't know if he ever even sets foot in Saskatchewan. It's nice to dream about, but listen, Rider Priders, please don't hold your breath. Hey, we got more breaking news out of the NHL. Max Domi, and are you like me, keep wanting to say Ty Domi? Ty's son, Max Domi, has been fined $5,000 for his boarding hit on Alexander Barkov at the conclusion of Game 2 last night. Oh, my God, there was so much going on in that Game 4. Did I say game 2? Game 4 last night, which the Panthers won 2-0. It was on the buzzer, Domi with a shot. It was not that dirty. It was at the other end from us, so we didn't get a very good look at it. Saw the replay shortly after. I'm like, of all the list of dirty things that have been done by, well, more so in these Stanley Cup playoffs, Domi hasn't been doing a lot of dirty things. Certainly nothing compared to his dad, but $5,000. As my guy Joe Lazzato said in New York, in 2025, that hit right there is an international incident. In the 80s, it's Sunday. On the Stanley Cup being an all-Canadian affair, Navy Don writes in from Ottawa, and he says, Toronto-Edmonton final was brought up in the Globe and Mail. A lot of Jets fans went, ahem. That's all. Here's something. Here's all you got to do, Winnipeg. Win a Stanley Cup. And then you won't ever have to worry about being overlooked again. You'll get out of the really ugly, never won a cup club. That includes, as you know, Vancouver, San Jose, Winnipeg, Ottawa, because we don't count the early ones. It's not a club you want to be in. The Panthers escaped it last year, and guess what? They don't got to answer any questions anymore. So if you're tired of being overlooked, win a Stanley Cup. You're welcome. Tony in Cochrane, Alberta, writes in. He says, I don't think the Leafs can continue to stand up to the rock'em sock'em style of the Panthers. Probably not, but here's the thing. The Panthers didn't play that way up in Toronto, and I don't know if they will take that game with them. Let's remember, 2 of the next 3 games, because I fully expect this will go 7, will be in Toronto. I don't know if you saw the stat, probably didn't, on the weekend. There's been no better home team since 2023 in the Stanley Cup playoffs than the Florida Panthers. They're 15-9 at the bank, Amerant Bank Arena. They don't play as much that way on the road. And they don't have home ice advantage in this series. Robin in Prince Albert says, do you miss the Don Cherry Rock'em Sock'em Hockey VHS tapes? No, because they're on YouTube and we watch them there. You're welcome. Troy in Toronto says, for me, nothing else in hockey is really a focus until the Stanley Cup is raised. Everything else is a secondary interest, even my beloved Blue Jays. I was on a street this weekend, Blue Jays Way. I stopped and took a picture of it. I'm like, did I move here? John in Edmonton writes in. He says, hey, Rod, if it's Toronto and Edmonton in the Stanley Cup final, will Gary Bettman be there? Yeah, probably, because he needs to hand out the Stanley Cup. But thanks for playing. Navy Don, one more from Navy Don regarding Winnipeg being overlooked. Don says, you're right, Rod, on the Ottawa thing. Well, they won their cups when there were 6 teams, and Toronto won all their cups with 6 teams. So why are Toronto's counted and not Ottawa's? Don't ask me. The Leafs, of course, last one was 1967, and I don't think Ottawa's last one has been after the 1910s. That's all. I don't make the rules. I'm just repeating them. Sports update when we come back and more viewer takeover. It's getting fun, isn't it? 902-518-3033. The Progressive Insurance text line will be back in a moment here on Game Plus Television, streaming live and podcasting wherever the best podcast.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Canada's premier Junior A Hockey League deserves premier coverage, and at IKS Media, we have you covered for all things SJHL. SJHL Weekly on Monday, a live broadcast across our social media platforms where we interview your favorite players and coaches from across the league and preview the upcoming week. And on Thursday, SJHL Insider, where we look ahead to the weekend that will be and cover everything going on across the league. Catch it all on our social media platforms or on sjhl.ca.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
From cash spiels to Grand Slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders, plus behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
It's a mini overtime from Studio 23 here in gorgeous South Florida. Because there are other leagues playing, and at a high level too, I might add. Heavy Gym Sports Update. Berkeley Catton had 2 goals and an assist, and the visiting Spokane Chiefs scored 4 times in the first period en route to a 6-2 win over the Medicine Hat Tigers at Co-op Place in Medicine Hat Sunday to tie up the WHL Championship. That's Western Hockey League at a game each. Gavin McKenna was held pointless for the Tigers. That snapped a 54-game point streak for Gavin McKenna. Game 3 Tuesday in Spokane, Washington. The series again tied 1-1. A trip to the Memorial Cup is on the line. For the Hoops fans, the Calgary Surge outscored the visiting Edmonton Stingers 28-18 in the final quarter to register an 86-84 victory in the Canadian Elite Basketball League's regular season opener. Thursday, the Vancouver Bandits are at the Saskatchewan Rattlers, and Friday night, the Winnipeg Sea Bears are home to those same Calgary Surge. You're welcome. Colorado Rockies have fired manager Bud Black. Despite being the winningest manager in franchise history, the Rockies are off to a 7-33 start. Colorado promoted third base coach Warren Schaefer to be the interim manager Sunday. The sports update's brought to you by Heavy Gym. Heavy Gym isn't just about lifting weights. It's about lifting your spirit, your strength, and your potential. Step into the gym that's changing lives. Find out more at heavygym.ca. Now, back into the comments, because that's what y'all came for. 902-518-3033. I know that's why I did. Kirk in Toronto writes in, he says, the Panthers rink must have great air conditioning to cool that building under that oppressive heat. Here's the thing that a good friend of mine, Bruce Franklin, a scout for Anaheim, says, the further south you go, the colder the rink gets. And for those of us that have a little age under our belts, remember the 80s and the Boston Garden and what other rinks, folks, where they had to skate around with towels during the game to lift the fog from the condensation and the humidity. But they figured it out. Remember the old Dallas Reunion Arena had those gigantic air conditioning units pumping from the outside of the arena? Dallas back in the day. They figured it out. Colder it is in here, the better the ice is. Wow. I guess it's dehumidifiers. But I will tell you what, the coldest rink ever was Rogers Place in Edmonton, summer of 2022, when the World Jays were there in August of 2022, because it was blazing hot in Edmonton. It was like 37, 38 Celsius. You could barely stand to be inside Rogers Place. You bundle up for it. It was okay, but we were doing this show in the rink with a partnership with Hockey Canada. Can we do it again, Hockey Canada? Can we be friends? That was the last event we ever did with them, and we almost froze to death. Ryan Thomas checks back in, the biggest Leafs fan here today. He says, loved Domi's hit. Panthers are the dirtiest team in the league. Absolute joke that Bennett wasn't suspended, and now Stolarz is likely out for the series. I don't think Stolarz would have made a difference last night in the game. Joseph Wall was outstanding. They couldn't score. I want to argue with you, Tommy, but I can't. There's a thing about living by the sword, and when you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So if you're going to hand out dirty hits, you better be prepared to accept dirty hits, especially when it's your captain, Alexander Barkov, who incidentally will be fine and will play Game 5 on Wednesday, according to head coach Paul Maurice. But you're going to play that way? It ain't patty cake. Regarding the nice gentleman in Winnipeg that had a tough time finding the Jets game, Scott in Moose Jaw writes, and he says, maybe the guy can't watch his game. What? They can't watch his game doesn't pay for all the channel. I get every game all year. I know, me too, so I don't really understand. I'm sorry that I can't be much help today. I'm not the cable guy. Regarding Curtis Rourke signing with the San Francisco 49ers, Brian in Hudson's Bay writes in and he says, Taylor Elsgersma also signed with the Green Bay Packers. Never saw any financials on that one, though. 2 young Canadian quarterbacks signing in the National Football League, owned by CFL teams. The times, they are a-changing. I wonder if they ever will show up north of the border. Okay, we're in one. It's a good one. And we'll continue it with Moose and Sweet Annie O.D. in hour 2 right after this.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Right now. Realizing I watched a lot of television with the youngsters back in the day. How about that? I'll say it again. That cab driver in Bucha Rios, Mexico, when he said, Señor, you're español, mucho bueno. Why is that? I said, Dora the Explorer. That's why I learned so much Spanish.
I got to brush up on my Spanish, though.
Yes, you do. ¿Cómo estás? Uno más, por favor.
This is the Rod Pedersen Show.
Hope you're having a fantastic start to the week. We are here on the RP Show, Canada's favorite daytime sports talk show, also Canada's only live daytime sports talk show, I think. They're doing construction next door. Not a big deal. Not sure if you can hear it or not. They tell me that Moose is ready to roll in Toronto. I'm in the South Florida studio where we're getting rain for 2 solid days, and nobody has a problem with it. Okay, let's bring in the Moose. I can hear him. Can you hear the construction go? Like, I feel like it's just on the other side of this wall.
Yeah, maybe a little. If I listen really closely.
They stopped. They just stopped. Good. Hey, couple things. Boys, do you want to hit the quick 6 show horn? We'll catch everybody up to speed what we've been talking about here right now on episode number 1494 of the RP Show. We've been talking about the NHL leftovers from the weekend. If you're hurt, should you play? They're saying Austin Matthews is, Matthew Tkachuk is. Clearly, if you're hurt, then yeah, you're going to play. Because you're better than the fourth line schlub that they would put in. No, but they're not adding a lot. I broke the story that Ken Holland is the next general manager of the Los Angeles Kings. You're welcome. We've talked very briefly about the NHL tonight. Moose and I got to make our picks. Blue Jays have won 4 in a row, including a sweep of Seattle on the weekend out in Seattle. We talked a little NBA and some football camps. So you've missed a lot. CFL and NFL training camps. Rookies for the NFL, main training camps for the CFL. I want to tell you a little funny story, though, because I've been here 4 years, and I get the Florida life in that they have accepted me as one of them. So I went to the game last night with a bunch of Floridians, and they talked about how dry it's been, Darren. You want to know how dry it's been? How dry, Rod? This isn't even a joke. They said along Alligator Alley, which is the stretch of freeway that runs between Sunrise and Fort Myers, Florida. Like if you're driving along, you'll see alligators in the ditch, just tooling around. They said the little baby alligators are like trying to find little pools of water to roll around in. The normal swamps are all dried up. They're dried fields. And everybody's worried about the alligators. And they're like, well, this week we're going to get rain every day, all day, so they'll be fine. But can you, in your mind, Imagine a little baby alligator trying to find a little puddle of water just to get a little bath. That's life here. You don't get that around Toronto, I don't think.
We don't get any alligators. We don't have any swampland. No, we don't. We don't get that around here. So, no, I hope for their sake they find the water this week.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there was a black bear apparently under the Ring Road overpass on South Albert today in the Queen City. I just want to point that out here. I'm still following my Regina news. Where was I? 902-518-3033 is the Progressive Insurance text line. This hour could be a little spicy. You tell me, please, Clark, when Sweet Annie checks in. Sweet Annie OD from Southern California. She hosts the Cherry Bomb podcast where she covers the Kings and the Ducks. Not that it matters, but I feel like it could get spicy because, number one, we haven't addressed the news that I broke this morning that Ken Holland's going to be the GM of the Kings. That's one thing. I don't think she'll have a problem with that. But she had a really big problem with Joel Quenneville being named the coach of the Ducks late last week. And we all know why. Annie is in the group of people that I'm not in that group, but the people that feel, and it's a big group. It's not like I don't respect their right to an opinion, but he was forced to resign by the NHL because of his role in the Chicago Blackhawks sexual abuse scandal. We all know what that role was. And there's that group of people that think that you should pay for the rest of your life. I'm not in that group. We have a justice system, and as Serena pointed out, he didn't even commit a crime. We know what it was. He didn't have an active role in ending it. We all know that. But how long should somebody have to pay? I don't believe his career should end. And I know you're not as big on picking sides as I am, Darren, but we never really addressed how do you feel about Joel Quenneville being hired in Anaheim? And secondly, Ken Holland now up the road in L.A.
Yeah, I think to me, this is a situation where I think the system kind of played out the way it probably should. An acknowledgement of the role he did play in this and time away from the game. So it wasn't an unpunished thing. He was a leader on that organization and didn't do anything really to follow up on it. And I know somebody else is more responsible and other people can handle it, but you're still a leader and it's still your responsibility to take care of your people. So I get that. But then I also believe that the way it was handled and now he's back in the game is also okay. Took some time away, understands the role and he eloquently talked about it. Yeah, it was a written statement and all the rest. But I think this is one of those situations where the system kind of played out the way it should. So I'm happy with the way it played out. And I'm also happy that he's back in the game.
Regarding the construction going on next door, John Ohm says, I can hear the construction. It reminds me of being at the dentist. I know, that's exactly what it sounds like. If you people can't hear it, then good. I can get through anything. Regarding dry spells in Toronto and no rain, Troy in Toronto writes in, he says, the homeless get sunburns on the streets, but that's it for Toronto when we have a dry spell. I saw this the other day, driving around here. Lady was weaving through traffic with a sign that says, I accept e-transfer. Oh, my God. I remember being in Vancouver in the early 2000s on a road trip with the Rough Riders, and there was a homeless person in a cardboard box on a cell phone. I thought that was wild. I was like, where do they mail the bill for your phone? Things that I think of. I'm just saying they're getting up with technology. To me, it's kind of interesting when you think about it. Now, we didn't get to Ken Holland yet. I don't know how old Ken Holland is. I want to say he's around Quenneville's age. I can look at it real quick. I want to say 66. And I think, Darren, in the case of Ken Holland, it's a thing where when he left Edmonton, he didn't need to work again. My God, I think he was making $6 million a year with the Oilers for 3 or 4 years there. Made a lot of money in Detroit for a real long time and won 4 Stanley Cups. I think he just likes to do the job. He's like the Belichick, the Pete Carroll. Do you think Pete Carroll needs the money? That he's got to coach the Las Vegas Raiders in the NFL? He just likes doing the job. And in the case of the LA Kings, they want to win. It's really interesting since I tweeted that Holland was joining the Kings as GM, the reaction on social media has been as polarizing as you can imagine, to watch their drafting go in the toilet, to great hire. I just think Ken Holland likes doing the job. I know he wasn't real happy with the way things ended in Edmonton, but if you want to keep working because you weren't happy with the way your last gig ended, you'll never retire. He was born in 1955. He's 69. Okay. I just feel like he just likes being a GM.
Yeah. Lou Lamoriello is 82, and he's just out now. And we think he's done now and probably won't work again. But, you say, the way it ended in Edmonton, that's kind of what I get. I don't know Ken Holland personally, but that's what I get is that, when you don't like the way that ended, you want to kind of go and see if you can end on a high note or, you don't want to leave that taste. You got a bad taste in your mouth with the way things have been in Edmonton. So you're not done. You're not done in that regard. So you got a good young core in LA, a team that I think is on the rise. An opportunity to put his mark on it and maybe see if you can't get them over the hump here after 4 straight losses to the Oilers.
Obviously, I have an unbelievable amount of respect for the Edmonton Oilers for every reason that they should. I just find it really interesting up there. When I started poking around as to why Ken Holland wasn't brought back after his contract expired, people were like, "Whoa, his contract just expired." They agreed to walk away. Right. And then I heard about all the, I saw Jeff Jackson doing all these interviews as the next GM or whatever the hell he was, Connor McDavid's agent. And then they hire Stan Bowman, which was roundly applauded by everybody that doesn't have a problem with it. That group I was talking about. And now you never hear about Jeff Jackson anymore. Everybody was crapping on Stan Bowman, why he didn't match the offer sheets to Broberg and Holloway. It's all about Bowman now. Why didn't you find a goalie? We got no goalies. Oh, wait a minute. Pickard's won 5 in a row, 6 in a row, just like Fuhr in 1985. Don't. It is. I talk about the ups and downs of the Leafs fan base. I got to say the Oilers, fan base-wise, are the Leafs of the West Conference. They don't know who to pin the tail on the donkey to in Edmonton. You know what I mean?
Huh. Yeah, I get it. They're definitely the two. And I kind of joke with some people. I said, man, if the Leafs and Oilers, I don't know if I want to see the day that the Leafs and Oilers meet in the Stanley Cup because the country will melt down. The country will melt down if the Leafs and Oilers, forget about like hockey East and West. It's political East and West. It's everything. I mean, the country would literally melt down if the Leafs and Oilers met in the Stanley Cup.
Hang on, I'm going to the big board. ChatGPT. Man, this is saving my ass these days. What are the odds that the Edmonton Oilers and Toronto Maple Leafs will meet in the Stanley Cup final? Let's see what they say. Do you ever have real just fun conversations with ChatGPT? It's like you're never alone. Oh, it's still searching. Hang on. It's a real big number. Well, exact odds aren't readily available. Both teams were among the top contenders. They didn't have the balls to make a prediction.
They danced around the question.
Yeah, they danced around it. It's 111, if anybody cares. 111 Eastern. Hello. They're asleep. There we go.
Beautiful.
Just in time.
Imagine the best possible outcome of your current quagmire. It does work. By the way, Laverne in Swift Current writes in and says Ken Holland turned 70 in November. For the older people, which I'm putting myself in the older category. Technically, I'm not a senior yet. I have a little ways to go, but I can't wait. I can see it. It's like going down to Gladmar, Saskatchewan when I spoke to the school there, and you could literally see this barbed wire fence that served as the U.S.-Canada border. It's like I can see the USA. I could, climb through that barbed wire fence and get into the States. I can see 55. I just can't get there yet. But the point is, age is just a number. And Darren, when I was a young person, I'm like, that's just a saying old people say to make themselves feel better. But then you get older and realize, no, it's true. Ken Holland, Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick. They got a young spirit. They clearly have the spirit of a 19-year-old. Age is just a number. So, why would we look up the age of Quenneville or Belichick? You see that, right? It's a spirit thing. It doesn't have an age.
No, you're right. It does. And that's the way it is. But we do, because we always wonder, for some reason, people will think as you get old, you're not competent to do the job. Again, experience, man. And you're right. Pete Carroll's a great example. He walks around, he's running around, he's got the energy. It's all about your ability to relate to the players. Forget about how old you are.
Yeah, you're right. I'm listening to you. I had a guy tell me this weekend, they're like, Rod, you have the attention of the young people. I'm like, I do? What evidence is there of that? I don't feel like I do. Troy in Toronto writes in, he says, I want to melt down. Give me a place in the Stanley Cup, please. I beg you, God. I'll take any scenario. This is Troy in Toronto begging that the Leafs and Oilers will meet in the Stanley Cup. He's like, at least if they did, he would at least know the Leafs were in the Stanley Cup final. I feel like God may prevent that from happening because God knows Canada couldn't handle it. And speaking of the big man, Laverne wrote in here earlier about, he says Mark Scheifele's hurt. He goes, clearly Scheifele's hurt. He's not throwing any hits. He goes, but as you said, better than a fourth-line schmuck. Right. But here's the thing about the injuries, and I don't know why this needs to be said, but I ran into Boyd Kane last night, Darren, at the Panthers game. He was a star left winger of ours with the Regina Pats in the 90s, and we were playing Brandon in 98, the dastardly Wheat Kings, and we were playing them in Winnipeg. Boyd was playing with two separated shoulders. Both his shoulders were separated. He was playing. And when you know it, Kelly McCrimmon's Wheat Kings were targeting him. And they weren't even really doing anything illegal other than hitting him a little late, right? After a whistle or whatever. They weren't going out of their way, but they just killed him. He didn't have a chance because they found out. They knew. So the point is, guys play hurt because he was better than the fourth-line schlub we would have put in there or the black ace. Brent from Wellington, Florida, who was a Pats fan, Darren, from that era, because Brent's from Regina, he goes to me last night. He goes, 19,500 people in this rink right now, and Boyd Kane found you. I was running up the stairs. He's like, Roddy, I haven't seen him in 20 years. I said, all I can say, Brent, is a God shot. Had to be. And we had a great visit. Okay, Moose, I think we're done. You good?
All right. You bet. Have a great one.
All right. You too, pal. Sweet Annie O.D. from the Cherry Bomb podcast joins us next. She talks Ducks and a little Kings hockey there in Southern California. We'll be right back here live on Game Plus TV, streaming live and podcasting wherever the best podcasts are found.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
From cash spiels to Grand Slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders. Plus, behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center July 7th. With special guest Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit shaniatwain.com.
Canada's premier Junior A Hockey League deserves premier coverage, and at IKS Media, we have you covered for all things SJHL. SJHL Weekly on Monday, a live broadcast across our social media platforms where we interview your favorite players and coaches from across the league and preview the upcoming week. And on Thursday, SJHL Insider, where we look ahead to the weekend that will be and cover everything going on across the league. Catch it all on our social media platforms or on sjhl.ca.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit.
As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Clear water, clear choice. Filter out the bad and taste the good. Hour 2 is brought to you by Culligan Water. Check them out, Culligan Water of Regina at culliganregina.com. Yeah, for Annie, Sweet Annie's joining us here in a second from Southern California from the Cherry Bomb podcast, and we're tracking towards a potential Edmonton-Toronto Stanley Cup final. Tony from Cochrane, Alberta writes in, he says the Leafs versus Oilers Cup final would cause a civil war. And who would Manitobans root for?
How
you can
about
bring
that?
Sweet Annie on the screen on that. From the text line, Rob in the Queen City writes in, he says, the Panthers are finding their swagger. Leafs core is doing their usual playoff disappearing act. It'll be a cold day in hell if the Leafs and Oilers are in the Stanley Cup final. That's from Rob. So I don't know. Hey, Sweet Annie, good to see you. Congratulations on all your wonderful things you got. I'm doing great. I'm always doing great. How do the Stanley Cup playoffs look from your perspective?
I feel like you have some series that are just absolutely dynamite, like Edmonton and Vegas. I have absolutely loved that series. Talk about that ending this weekend. But I hate saying this because they're a team that I've said I don't really enjoy watching, but that Caps Carolina series is just a snoozer to me. And I'm hoping that picks up a little bit of steam here because there's talent. There's potential to be a great series. You have a division rivalry there, but every time when I see that on the schedule, I'm like, okay, we got to sit. Well, I sit through and watch it, but it's still like, compared to the other series, it's just not close. But I actually was at a really cool event to watch the Dallas-Winnipeg game. Was it game 2? And I mean, I'm all in on Dallas. I think this might be their year to make it, one, make it back to the Cup final, but 2, possibly win it. But hey, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens this coming week.
Here's a fun game to play when you're watching the Washington-Carolina series. Count how many times they show Rod Brindamore on screen. Rod the Bod. It's a fun little game to play to just distract you from how boring it is on the ice. So I have a Florida-Dallas.
That'd be a good drinking game, too.
Well, I don't drink, so that's what I think. I had a Dallas-Florida Stanley Cup. It's still looking good. What was yours going in? Do you remember?
What did I have going in? I can't even remember my bracket at this point, but I did have Dallas coming out of the West. I think I had Washington coming out of the East, but we'll see. I don't know. Like you said, Florida's looking good. So,
yeah, the comeback Cats. What was the thing I saw this weekend where the NHL posted a photo of you with the cup?
where was, oh, that was at the event I went to on Friday night at the Cosm. It's like this, it's kind of like the Sphere in Vegas, if you've been there, but it's like this huge screen where they broadcast. They have cameras in most of these arenas, and it's almost as if you're there in like a whole immersion, which to me personally, I mean, hockey, when you're watching I've watched hockey games like on the glass and close, and it's an experience. It's cool, but sometimes it's not the best view to actually like watch the game. So it was a cool experience. And they showed the camera angle right behind the net for that Adam Lowry goal, which was really sick, not gonna lie. But as far as like a game viewing, you want to watch the entirety of plays developing and, best view. Probably not the best, but it was very cool. And yes, the Stanley Cup was there. So always never gets old. It wasn't my first time seeing the Stanley Cup, but every time you see it, it doesn't get old.
Yeah, no, but you were profiled by the NHL, which I don't think would get old either. But it's funny. I've been here in Florida for a minute, as you know, and everybody's so geeked up about getting down on the glass. And I'm like, you understand that in Canada, we watch from up, whatever, enjoy the game. I don't want to get into the argument. It's just the way that I learned to watch the game. Okay, primarily, you cover the Ducks and some of the Kings. So that's why I wanted to get you on. I want your take, first of all. Let's just go chronologically. Joel Quenneville's the new coach of the Ducks. You have some opinions on that.
I do. I think, well, first of all, you kind of go into this head coaching search, and it's tough to get a read on the Ducks, first of all, because Pat Verbeek and the organization themselves are very tight-lipped. So all of a sudden, when you see John Buccigross tweeting a picture of Joel Quenneville and a picture of some Ducks, what was that, probably 2 weeks ago now, you're thinking, what? Like nothing gets out of that organization. Then all of a sudden you hear, oh, David Carl has been interviewed, Jay Woodcroft, Rick Tocchet is in discussion. I'm like, this is the most information we've heard about the Ducks in quite some time, just from Pierre LeBrun's, the Frank Saravalli's. So you knew this coaching search was a little different, and that PR was trying to put feelers out and put stuff out there to kind of test the public's reaction. At first, the public's reaction was not thrilled, and understandably so. I think anybody that read that report in 2010 and what happened with that Blackhawks, with the mishandling of that sexual assault allegations, was, I think anybody reading that felt just sick to their stomach over that. So any association with that, you're automatically saying absolutely not. You want no part of that with your team. And then you think about it, you're saying, okay, Pat Verbeek and Joel Quenneville were teammates twice in New Jersey and Hartford. They go way, way back. And you talk to people, and he has a very, great reputation, obviously, great pedigree. He's got 3 Stanley Cups as head coach. One is the assistant with Colorado. And I think at this point, the Ducks, knowing that they knew what they were taking on when they were hiring him, saying, hey, there's going to be PR blowback. Blowback. And I thought with the press conference they had immediately, I did think it was perfectly odd timing. They announced the hire when, there was an American Pope announced. I thought that was kind of keen timing on that announcement, but I thought they handled that press conference really well. Quenneville seemed sincere, and he came with receipts. He came with the list of organizations and people that he had been working with. He seemed very remorseful. At this point for me, I am on the part of, okay, you've talked the talk, but time to walk the walk. You say you're going to be involved with local organizations. You're going to be, involved in the community with, sexual abuse survivors and organizations like that. I want to see it. And on the hockey side, obviously, I think it's no question that Joel Quenneville was one of the best available coaches, and that the situation in Anaheim has to be very appealing to him. You're not coming to a hot hockey market, not an original 6 team, not in, like I said, a non-traditional market. So you're not going to get the media circus that you would in certain teams. You've also got a very young, up-and-coming team, bright talent. So it's not like he's trying to coach this, trying to hold on to this team for dear life before they eventually have to tear it down. You know, he's been in this situation before with the Chicago Blackhawks when he took that job. So on the hockey side, I can't lie, I am excited about this hire. On the obviously the PR, the, you know, controversy side, you know, I want to see some action on that part.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny, just to backtrack a bit, you talk about it not being a hockey market. As an original Canadian, us Canadians have a tough time believing, what do you mean it's not a big deal? It's the Ducks. But I don't think I ever told you. I did a banquet with Ryan Getzlaff, and Getz said that, he goes, we'll go on a weekend road trip to Montreal and Toronto. I'll talk to more reporters in each town on a weekend than I will in Anaheim for 2 years. Okay.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah, but we can't, because it's Canada.
Right.
It's the NHL. What are you talking about? Now, having said that, Ken Holland will be the next general manager of the LA Kings, was the tip that I got today, and have posted it to Twitter's sphere. How do you? Yeah, clearly you haven't heard.
I haven't even heard.
How do you feel about that? Yeah, how do you feel?
I mean, at this point, it's they had to do something, and honestly, I'm shocked they didn't do something last year. You would think the third time being eliminated by the Oilers in the first round would be enough for Luc Robitaille and the Kings to say, hey, we got to do something, and gave Rob Blake one more chance. You know, the Pierre-Luc, I will say, I gave a lot of heat to him for the Pierre-Luc Dubois, the first trade, obviously, but the second trade going to Washington, you're getting Darcy Kemper back, which obviously I have to eat my words on that. The man's a Vezina finalist. He had a great year, and honestly, a solid playoff. You know, he's not. You know, Darcy Kemper is not the reason the Kings lost 4 straight to the Edmonton Oilers. So I'll eat my words on that too. But Ken, you know, I think it's also showing too. You know, I think the Kings get a lot of credit and a lot of kudos for kind of speeding up their rebuild and not. Yeah, they missed the playoffs a few years, but they didn't necessarily tear anything down. They kept a lot of their core guys. Obviously, Kopitar and Doughty are still there. But I think it kind of brings the argument in is, can you really avoid a full tear? Can you avoid the full rebuild if you want to be a Stanley Cup contender? I think the answer is no at this point. I think you need to suck for a few years. I think you need to get a few top 1, 2, 3 draft picks in your arsenal there. So Ken Holland will have an interesting time, an interesting job there, because, you know, you kind of look at what Kyle Dubas is trying to do in Pittsburgh, trying to hang on, get a couple more years out of Crosby, Malkin, and Letang. And personally, I would hate to be a GM in that situation personally, but, you know, obviously it's not exactly the same. The Kings have a lot of young talent on their team, and I think are in a much better position, obviously, than the Pittsburgh Penguins have been. But I don't know how I feel. Is Ken the guy to do it, though? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Every team wants something a little different, possibly, but he's got the resume. He's got the experience. He's got the know-how, you know. Let me ask you this. How many Ducks games, if I may be so invasive, how many Ducks games a year would you go to versus Kings games? Because you go to both, right? I see the photos.
I go to both. I go to way more Ducks games. It's just easier. And 1, easier to get tickets. And 2, it's closer for me. And it's much, you're dealing, I don't know if, have you been down to Southern California?
Many times.
So it's much easier. Where Honda Center is, it's right off the freeway. It's very convenient. There's parking lots everywhere. Whereas, you know, LA, you're going into downtown, Crypto.com Arena. You're dealing with downtown parking lots and the LA traffic, obviously. So it's just a bit more of a trek to get there. But yeah, definitely more Ducks games.
Both are cool. But the reason I ask, I mean, the Kings did set a franchise record for home wins this year and led the NHL in home wins. They weren't a bunch of Rudy Poos. Like, how close are they to being a contender? You know, what really is Ken walking into there?
I mean, I think they're not. You're not looking in a position where you're saying, oh, we have to, you're not looking into a tear everything down thing. You're looking into, hey, you're right on the precipice of being a cup contender. If you get more years out of Darcy Kemper, you get Kopitar and Doughty to sign on because they're still productive. They're still great hockey players, obviously. You're not looking at them and saying, oh, they're, bums that are taking up decent salary cap space there. But I think just a few minor changes and the Kings are back in contention. And I'm of the belief it's kind of like when the Panthers had to beat the Lightning last year to make it to the Cup final. I do think they will have to slay the dragon, slay their demons, and pass through the Edmonton Oilers to get past the first round, but let alone get to be Cup contenders. But no, you're not talking about, doesn't have to come in and completely dismantle, not like Pat Verbeek coming in Anaheim and saying that he's got to completely tear this foundation down and build it back up again. But
yeah, which he did, and that's my last question for you is, you and I have been doing this for some time now, and we just keep talking about when are the Ducks going to be all that, and they just aren't. They're just young and talented, but they just can't get over to the hump. Maybe Q is the guy to do it. What are your expectations on the first year, or when are they going to be what we expect they can be?
I think they make the play. I don't know if it's necessarily a bold prediction, but I do think this coming season they got to be making the playoffs. They got to at least be in that wild card discussion. If they don't make the playoffs, they got to come down to game 82 where they are still in the hunt for a potential playoff berth. Because at this point, listen, you look at the past 2 years and under Greg Cronin, that's a lot of things. You can tell a lot of people don't watch the Ducks when they're so shocked by the Greg Cronin firing. Whoa, they had a 21-point improvement from last season. What's going on here? And you look at the numbers. That's from the performance of Lukas Dostal and John Gibson. You look at those numbers. Goaltending, Vassiv stole them so many games this year. And you've seen a lot of improvement, individually from the young guys. Obviously, Leo Carlson, your boy Mason McTavish having solid years. And, you're seeing Cutter Gauthier had a solid rookie year, especially near the end there. You see the potential there. You just need the right voices behind the net and behind the bench, excuse me. And, you also look at your special teams this year. Awful. There's no reason with this much talent that they should have a power play and a penalty kill near the bottom of the league. But getting a guy like Q behind the bench, not only to get the players excited, and from what I've heard, the players are absolutely thrilled with this hire and so excited to play under Joel Quenneville, but it also attracts free agents, which was one thing about Greg Cronin was a lot of guys didn't sign in Anaheim because they didn't want to play for him, because they didn't hear good things about him. And you heard that it got to spit and chicklets where the guys were unhappy with the head coach there. And that's a big part of it. Pat Verbeek can offer however much money he wants to free agents, which he tried to do with Stamkos and Marchessault last summer. But if it's not an appealing organization, if it's not an appealing head coach that you want to come play for, of course they're going to go sign somewhere else for the same amount of money. And in Nashville, you're probably making more money because the taxes are different there. But yeah, this was a huge hire for Pat Verbeek, and he knew that. He knew he had to get it right. And he knew that his buddy Joel was the best available head coach. And he decided that the PR blowback, potentially, the criticism of all that was worth the risk. And but it also shows that, hey, he's committed to winning, to wanting to put the best team on the ice here.
And as you say, now they need to go out and prove it. Annie, it is always a pleasure. Thanks for the time. Keep just being you. I know you will.
I appreciate it, Ron. Thank you. Always a pleasure.
All right. Sweet Annie O'Donnell from the Cherry Bomb Podcast, where she covers the Ducks and the Kings. Okay. Viewer takeover the rest of the way. Oh, boy. Well, Brent from Wellington, Florida, just checked in and says, who wins the cup first, the Ducks or the Kings? Maybe we'll just have to message Annie and find out, because I think she's gone. Viewer takeover the rest of the way and a sports update. We'll be right back here on Game Plus TV, streaming live and podcast wherever the best podcast.
capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Canada's premier Junior A Hockey League deserves premier coverage, and at IKS Media, we have you covered for all things SJHL. SJHL Weekly on Monday, a live broadcast across our social media platforms where we interview your favorite players and coaches from across the league and preview the upcoming week. And on Thursday, SJHL Insider, where we look ahead to the weekend that will be and cover everything going on across the league. Catch it all on our social media platforms or on sjhl.ca.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit.
As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
We're broadcasting from Studio 23 here in South Florida, home of the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Welcome, everybody. I got enough sports information to carry us right up until the top of the hour, as we say in the broadcasting biz, but I'd rather talk to you. 902-518-3033. You can get the sports information anywhere. You don't get this anywhere else. Kevin writes in regarding this Ducks-Kings talk. Kevin is in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And he says, while Coach Q must accept some of the blame for that fiasco in Chicago, team ownership and Stan Bowman should be held more responsible. Don't hear much about Bowman being in Edmonton. Well, I appreciate the sentiment. I'll pass along what I think about that and what I know. Number one, what more can you do? Stan Bowman got fired. Everybody got fired. Okay, and they're not going to take the team away. Which, incidentally, they did do that in the NFL in Washington with the Redskins owner, Dan Snyder, but this is slightly more different. And the thing with Quenneville, what upsets me is everybody acts like Quenneville is the guilty party in this. I'm choosing my words carefully here, but in my time around sports, the coaches have tunnel vision. They just worry about the 20 players. That's about it. Anyways, he lost his job. Stan Bowman lost his job. And when the Oilers hired Stan Bowman, there was a huge outcry over that, to the degree that Jeff Jackson, whatever they call him up there, the president of hockey operations, had a news conference and said Stan's going to be doing all the same things that Quenneville is apparently going to be doing in Anaheim, working with community groups and the abused. And does that work? I hope so. I hope it works. But what more do you need to see? Again, they're not going to take the team away. And by the way, look where the Blackhawks are right now. That franchise has been decimated. Well, I'm sure they're still making money. The Chicago Blackhawks, I was there this year, sold out games. The general manager, Kyle Davidson, anybody would agree, but they're too nice to say publicly, hasn't done a good job. And I was hanging out with hockey people in Chicago there when I was there in January. I'm like, well, how did he get the job then? And they're like, he was the only guy left. The franchise in Chicago has been decimated. They've paid enough. What more do you want from Quenneville? The Panthers were 7-0 here. I had just got here. They were 7-0 when Quenneville was forced to step down. And it pissed me off that he was forced to step down. I didn't read the report. Not that hockey has the greatest culture, but in the case of Quenneville, he's like, I got a team to coach. Let these guys worry about it. They all got fired. When are you going to move on? When are you going? Everybody else has moved on, guys. When are you going to move on? That's my take on that. 902-518-3033 is the Progressive Insurance text line. Switch to Progressive and you could save a buck. I have no idea how these guys ended up talking about par 3 golf in the streaming chat. Golf, just not my thing. You all know that. Brent slid in just before the end of the interview with Sweet Annie and asks, who wins a cup first, the Ducks or the Kings? That is a hell of a question. And I got to get some time, more time, with coaches and general managers because the game has moved real fast. And listen, it's not like I'm a dinosaur in what we do in the broadcasting business, but I'm a broadcaster. I'm not a coach and a GM. I would think you would want a long-term goalie and long-term people with your club, but that's not always the case. I.e., Darcy Kemper, Annie said it. Look how great he was in L.A. this year. He was just in Colorado and won a Stanley Cup. Was he not in Washington the year before? Cam Talbot was in L.A. like 2 seasons ago and was an all-star. Now, that's not to say it always works, by the way, because the Kings keep getting bounced in the playoffs. And look at what we got here. Sergei Bobrovsky's been here since 2020. I guess there's more than one way to skin a cat. But if you consider that all sports are the same in terms of concept, it doesn't really make a difference what the sport is. Like Jeff Reinbold was on here from the University of Hawaii Rainbow Warriors a couple of months back. And I said, what's it like coaching college football right now when you have a whole new group of players in your room every year? He said, no, not a big deal. He goes, the people we feel sorry for are the fans. They're the ones that suffer the most because they get attached to the players. But these guys don't get attached to the players. That's very evident. What another general manager type here in the States told me about the players is that the emphasis now, the onus is on coaching. We need the best coaches to bring everybody together in a short time. Because I would think bringing in a playbook, whether it's football, even what they do in hockey, would not be easy. They're just doing it a hell of a lot faster. So who would be closer? Let's put that to the audience. Who wins the Stanley Cup first, the Ducks or the Kings? I was initially saying the Kings. They're coming off a season where they just set a record for home wins. An LA franchise record, but they were number 1 in the NHL. So you'd think they're close. But on the flip side, Anaheim's been close for quite some time. All they've been missing, apparently, is a coach like Joel Quenneville. You're looking going to say Anaheim. Anyways, we'll get to the aforementioned sports update when we return. 902-518-3033. Also, to get your text comments in. Overtime is on the way. One more segment. We're live here on Game Plus TV, streaming live and podcast wherever the best podcasts are.
From cash spiels to Grand Slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders, plus behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit.
As long as you're entertained, aren't you entertained?
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center, July 7th. With special guest, Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit ShaniaTwain.com.
Hi, my name's Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
You got something to say? You want to add to the show? What are you waiting for? Don't just sit there. Say something. Now, back to the studio with Rod.
Okay, we're back for overtime, everybody, and there's always something exciting happening at Overtime Hockey Lanes. Randy and Michelle over there watch the show every day, specifically overtime. So you tell me, Randy, did I see that you got lacrosse in there now? And you've had ringette for a while. Oh my God, it's becoming a full-service amusement park of sports for kids. I'm here for it. Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary, where skill and fun collide. Book your next team party there, birthday party, office party. 28th Street, Northeast Calgary, Overtime Hockey Lanes. I wouldn't steer you wrong. And you all know that. That's why you're watching right now. I forgot to do the picks with the Moose. So hold me to this. Well, write it down. I got Carolina to beat Washington tonight, and I have the Edmonton Oilers to beat the Vegas Golden Knights tonight. The last, coming out of the weekend, I didn't actually add it up. This is on me, but Darren and I tied Friday night. I think I lead them like 21-18 or something like that. I don't know. I want to say we started something with our sport betting segments where we pick the games, but we don't put any on the line. For whatever reason, the betting partners, the betting companies want nothing to do with it. I don't know. Why is that? Fun for us. Breakaway bets. John Ohm in Winnipeg's watching. He says the Kings are closer to winning a Stanley Cup. Jeff the Stamps fan says, but do either win in our lifetimes? It's very tough to say. I feel like there's so many things that we didn't even get to today that we could have, like the NHL to Atlanta. Now they're going to add a 33rd team. It was hard to win a Stanley Cup in the 21-team era. It was hard to win a Stanley Cup in the 6-team era. And now there's going to be 33 teams? Hey, I'm all for it. If we can get past the watered-down talent for those of us that were raised on the 21-team NHL era and just go, hey, more. We're in the age of more. And Atlanta is a 1-hour flight from here. Pretty easy to get to. Yeah. But I also know there's a lot of people that aren't so down with it. But for those that want a team in Canada before Atlanta, not happening. 902-518-3033. Progressive Insurance text line. Switch to Progressive and you can save a bunch. Headlines, sports headlines for Heavy Jim. The Philadelphia Eagles will start defending their championship at home on September 4th against the division rival Dallas Cowboys. The matchup for the annual regular season kickoff game was revealed by the NFL in the first of a series of announcements of notable games this week ahead of the full schedule release. The Cowboys-Eagles matchup will be on Thursday night in the first in NBC's package of primarily Sunday night games. Here's the thing that I just blows my mind. The CFL fans just go goo gaga for the schedule to come out, and trust me, I get it. I'm with you. I understand why. There are years where we CFL fans got the schedule before Christmas. Would it come out this year, like end of January? That was still almost 6 months, well, for sure 5+ months ahead of the regular season. And people were still antsy wondering where it was. We're here in the middle of May, and there's still no NFL schedule, and the season kicks off in June, July, 3 months. Just a little over 3 months. The NFL has not announced the schedule yet. Now they're just trickling it out. And I get the reason, like, I know there's hardcore NFL fans watching this show right now, of course. But it just kind of dawned on me now that I'm living in an NFL market. I'm like, you wait this long to get the schedule out? And nobody seems to mind. The Oilers look to take a 3-1 series lead over Vegas tonight in Edmonton as the Stanley Cup playoffs continue. Stuart Skinner starts in goal for the Oil. Elsewhere, Alex Ovechkin and the Capitals try to avoid a 3-1 hold when they visit the Hurricanes for Game 4 in Carolina. The Toronto Maple Leafs return home for Game 5 Wednesday with their Stanley Cup playoff series against the Florida Panthers tied 2-2. Florida won 2-0 here in Sunrise Sunday night to even it up at 2-2. The Winnipeg Jets face the Dallas Stars in Game 4 Tuesday. They'll be looking to tie that series up 2-2 when they meet in Texas. How about this? Did you know the NBA draft lottery goes tonight in Chicago with 13 teams vying for the number 1 pick? Utah, Washington, and Charlotte each have a 14% shot. Next is the Toronto Raptors at 7.5. The winner gets the chance to draft prospective top pick Cooper Flagg of Duke. I feel like Cooper Flagg didn't really do much in March Madness this year, but I also know he was battling the ankle injury, right? In the NBA playoffs, the Knicks host the Boston Celtics tonight with a chance to take a 3-1 lead in their Eastern semifinal. The Minnesota Timberwolves look to go up 3-1 when they entertain the Golden State Warriors in the West. And Michael Jordan is joining NBC Sports as a special contributor to its NBA coverage with the 2025-26 season beginning. When it begins, NBC made the announcement today during their upfront presentation at Radio City Music Hall, previewing the network's offerings during the upcoming television season. NBC returns to carrying the NBA after a 23-year absence. It had NBA rights from 1990 through 2002 and carried all 6 of Jordan's championships as a member of the Bulls. This is the first time MJ has joined a network. Sports headlines for Heavy Gym. Heavy Gym isn't just about lifting weights. It's about lifting your spirit, your strength, and your potential. Step into the gym that's changing lives. Find out more at heavygym.ca. Oh, this is weird. We covered all the ground that I wanted to today. I feel like we had a very productive day. Ryan in upstate New York, a New York Jets fan, writes in. He says, I reckon because the NFL is always in the sports news cycle that fans are okay with waiting until May until the sked is released. Have a great Monday, everyone. Thank you, Ryan, for chiming in and giving me a thought on that. I mean, I am in that CFL crowd where we planned our summer based on the schedule. And that's way before when I was the voice of the team. We plan everything around the Rough Riders schedule. It's the Alabama of the CFL. And maybe the people here don't do that with the NFL. I don't know. I'm wondering how much I should care. Thank you to Sweet Annie. Thanks on behalf of our crew. We'll see you all again tomorrow here at noon Eastern.
We don't know what we're doing.